What's up, guys? We have another great video for you again today. Here are my top waiver wire pickups at QB for Week 15. First off, I have Drake May. He's facing a solid Cardinals defense in Week 15, but they're not unbeatable. May has proven himself to already be a very good quarterback with elite rushing upside in fantasy football. I like May as a top quarterback waiver priority this week. Next, I have Aaron Rodgers. He's been playing good ball as of late, and he's really been threading the needle. He seems to be on the same page with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams right now, and he gets a beautiful matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 15. Desmond Ritter is another guy who I think you can roll with if you were desperate. He gets a nice matchup versus the Falcons secondary that just gave up 5 touchdowns last week. Ritter looked good in his one quarter of play in Week 14, and he does provide some rushing upside as well.
Here are a few wide receivers to add off the waiver wire. First up, we have Rome Odunze, Chicago Bears. His yardage is very inconsistent, but he has become Caleb Williams' go-to target in the red zone, and he's so available in roughly 40% of leagues. Moving on to Mac Hollins of the Buffalo Bills. Like Odunze, he's become the favorite for Josh Allen in that tight red zone area, and he offers some good flex upside, a little bit more consistent than Odunze. In 3 of his last 5 games, he's hit double digits. Finally, we're moving on to Quinn Johnson's LA Chargers. He was a very, very raw wide receiver coming out, but he's starting to round a little bit more into form. He's starting to get the trust of Herbert, and his size and speed combination makes for an excellent number 2 option in that offense. And he's hit double digit points in 4 of his last 5 full games he's played.
Here are some running backs to add in fantasy football for Week 15. First up, I'd like adding Sincere McCormick of the Las Vegas Raiders. Sincere is only 15% owned in Yahoo leagues. He's also coming off a great performance in Week 14, where he posted 15 carries for 78 yards and 2 receptions. He's likely going to get the start again this week, as the Raiders' top 2 ball carriers remain sidelined, so he's definitely worth a roster spot. Next up, I'm adding Isaiah Davis of the New York Jets. He's had 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown this past week. He also added 3 catches for 27 yards, and he's now scored a touchdown in 2 straight weeks. And he's a better pass catcher than Braylon Allen, so he should still get snaps on third down, even when Brees Hall returns. And lastly, I'm adding Patrick Taylor Jr. of the 49ers. He's the next man up for the 49ers at running back after Isaac Guerrero went down with a knee injury in Week 14. If he remains sidelined, suddenly Taylor will find himself as the lead back in an explosive offense.
Your tight end waiver wire pickups. Maybe you're in the first round of the playoffs. Maybe this is going to be the last week before the playoffs. We got you covered on tight ends. First up, Daniel Bellinger of the New York Giants. Listen, the guy has had 5 catches on 7 targets, 45 yards last week. And that was his first game after Theo Johnson went on the IR. So expect some decent production out of Daniel Bellinger, especially if you're in those PPR leagues. That's good targets. We also got Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints, averaging in his last 2 games 6 targets and 45 yards. The Saints don't have a lot of options. Juwan Johnson could be that go-to guy now that Taysom Hill is out. Grant Calcaterra of the Eagles, if you listen to the start sits, I told you guys to start him. Goddard's gone. He had 8+ PPR targets in 3 of his 4 games as a starter, and he is looking to be that guy in one of the best offenses in the NFL. We're also looking for Tyler Higbee. It's a bit of a reach. He's obviously of the Rams. He's making his return this week, but if you have the spot to just stash him on the bench, kind of feel it out, see what his production is going to look like in his first week back, that could bode well for the rest of the fantasy playoffs. Hope you guys have a good week.
Okay, here are a few fantasy football fool's gold players to not fall for. First, Jalen McMillan, wide receiver on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Way too inconsistent all season, up and down, up and down. And most of his points this past week came from 2 touchdowns. And as we know, touchdowns are very inconsistent. Next, Tim Patrick. He's a wide receiver on the Detroit Lions. Coming in last game, he was averaging less than 4 points per game, and he's a 31 wide receiver. He pops off occasionally with these big games, but he is not someone you should be out there hunting to add to help you win your fantasy championship.
This week's fantasy football debate, 10-man league. Do you like the 4-team playoff or the 6-team playoff? Me personally, I like the 4-team playoff. Listen, The whole point of this is head-to-head, so throw points out the window. Who cares if the highest points getters are the 5th or the 6th seed? Head-to-head is what matters. We're not playing a points-based. We're playing head-to-head. Record matters more than points. And listen, if more than half of the field is making the playoffs, it waters it down. It's not how it should be. We're not giving out participation trophies here.
I hear what you're saying, Jordan, but the only answer to this question is 6 teams. 6 teams do not punish the highest scoring teams because the top 2 teams still receive bye weeks. And it's better to take into account the fact that variance does happen in fantasy football. In 4 team formats, oftentimes the highest scoring team can miss the playoffs. That's happened in a few leagues that I'm in before. And that's not really a good outcome when you think about it. The highest teams should be represented. I think a 16 playoff does a better job of making sure that happens.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
All right, here's my hot takes. The Yankees missing out on Soto is massive. And his free agency miss will set the Yankees back 3 to 5 years in their plan in trying to win a World Series unless they go on a massive spending spree. The Yankees needed that crucial superstar to be there with Judge and to be younger, which is what Soto was. But he wasn't the only issue. They probably need to sign Walker for first base, one more starting pitcher. I would say 1 or 2 bullpen deaths, but missing that other key star like the Dodgers have with Betts, Shohei Freeman. I mean, it's just the Yankees are not deep enough, and this set them really far down. Next, the Chiefs will not make the AFC Conference Championship for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. This dangerous game they're playing will not get them far enough in the playoffs. And finally, the Lions will make their first Super Bowl appearance this season because they look like the best team in the NFC.
My hot takes, one of them, NFL, Jonathan Brooks, man. The man tore his ACL. He's done for the year, done for a year just about. But hey, he's going to be back. He's going to be fine. Carolina, they're going to have their own little Sonic and Knuckles like they got up in Detroit. Brooks, Chuba Hubbard, those guys, they're going to be balling end of next season and into the future. Also, another hot take, not really hot take, just my opinion, and I'm going to give shout out to college football for expanding the playoffs to 12 teams. That is a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. I'm not a big fan of college football, so this is big. I've actually got some interest in this playoff format now, and hey, I think it's a step in the right direction for college football.
My hot take for the week is that the College Football Selection Committee made the right choice choosing SMU over Alabama. Alabama, as a 3-loss SEC team and perennial college football powerhouse, did have a good claim at securing the last at-large bid in the field, but their losses to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and a particularly bad blowout loss to Oklahoma were just too much to overcome. SMU provides value to the tournament as it gets the Dallas market into the playoffs, when the tournament already has a lot of representation from SEC schools. And on merit alone, SMU is a very good football team that could still make a little noise in these playoffs. They have an electric offense that averaged over 38 points per game this season, led by phenom sophomore quarterback Kevin Jennings and a running back Rashard Smith, who will certainly be playing on Sundays soon. They also play good defense and will be a tough out this December.
My hot take for the week is that Juan Soto is worth the 15-year, $760 million contract that the Mets are giving him. And that's based on his ability to simply never chase pitches out of the zone. This is a rare skill that is hard to teach, and when combined with Soto's 50 home run power, it makes him the best player in baseball. He has the potential to be the modern-day Ted Williams, and he makes the Mets immediate World Series contenders.
right, we are playing 1-2, and we look down at red aces under the gun, and we raise to $18. We get two callers when the button now raises to $75. I think what to do, but knowing that the other two will most likely fold, so I decide just to flat here to kind of get tricky and deceptive. So that's what I do, and the other two players do fold. I check in the dark as well. The flop comes the Queen of Hearts, the Seven of Hearts, and then Nine of Spades. The button now bets for 100, and that's what I want him to do. So I go all in for 178, and of course I make the call. The turn is the Four of Hearts, and the river is the Nine of Clubs. They say out loud, "Your Ace King's no good," and they show their Ace Queen offsuit, and I flip over my pocket aces and scoop a nice hand. All right, here's one more hand. Still playing 1-2. Middle position raises to $12, and I look down at Ace King of Diamonds from the cutoff, and I three bet to $37. The small blind and the middle position players both call, so now we go three ways to a flop. The flop is the King of Spades, the Three of Diamonds, the Two of Diamonds. Small blind now dunk bets out for 50. The middle position goes all in for 155. I think about it, but I think my best decision is to rejam, which I do for $322, and the small blind decides to go all in for less. The turn is the Five of Clubs, and the river is the Four of Diamonds. I show my flush. The small blind had King Jack of Hearts, and the middle position showed that they had pocket aces, so I get very lucky there and hit that flush and scoop a nice flop.
Soccer hooligans.
Welcome back to another edition of the Added Minutes. We had the MLS Cup happen, and the MLS Cup champions are, drumroll please, the LA Galaxy. Goals came early and often in this game. Galaxy went up in the 9th minute thanks to a Joseph Pansel goal. They doubled their lead just 4 minutes after that in the 13th minute thanks to Dejan Joveljic. New York Red Bulls, they pulled one back before halftime in the 28th minute thanks to Sean Nahles. But the Galaxy would win. That would be all the goals scored. They win 2-0, their 6th MLS championship. That is a record. 10 appearances as well, which is pretty crazy. DC United is the next closest team with 4 championships. Moving on to Real Madrid. They've been pretty bad in the UCL, but they are closing the gap on Barcelona in La Liga. Matter of fact, both Madrid teams are closing the gap against Barcelona, as Barcelona drew over the weekend 2-2. They drop points. Right now, Barca is still in first place. They've played 17 games, one more game than Real and Atletico. Barca sitting on 38 points, Real Madrid sitting on 36, and Atletico Madrid sitting on 35. Hope you guys enjoyed the quick added minute today. See you next week.
It's been a wild week in baseball as Juan Soto just inked the largest contract in sports history with the Mets. The deal is worth $760 million over 15 years with no deferred money. The Mets teaming him up with Lindor makes them one of the best lineups in the MLB. Blake Snell also signed a contract worth $182 million over 5 years with the Dodgers, solidifying their rotation as the best in the MLB. The contract includes deferred money, and many baseball fans expressed anger at the Dodgers' use of this tactic. Luis Severino signed the biggest contract in A's history. It was 3 years, $67 million. This contract highlights the disparity between the haves and the have-nots in baseball, as Oakland simply cannot spend with the Dodgers or Mets. The Cubs made a sneaky good move by signing Matthew Boyd to a 2-year deal. Boyd proved in Cleveland last year that he's still a good pitcher, and he rounds out the back of the rotation for the Cubs. And finally, the Guardians re-signed Shane Bieber to a 1-year, $14 million prove-it deal, and the deal is beneficial for both the club and the player, as Bieber gets to free agency next year and the Guardians get a potential Cy Young candidate.
All right, here's a few players to add in fantasy basketball. First up, Ryu Hachimura, probably butchered the name. He is on the LA Lakers, and he has had a fantastic last 2 weeks. He is positioned at small forward and power forward. He's available in 50% leagues, and he's been player number 16 the last 2 weeks. He gives you 1.4 3-pointers made, 12.9 points, 4.9 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.4 steals, and a block, so it just gives you a little bit of everything. Now, Grayson Allen of the Phoenix Suns, he's starting to heat up, and when he does, he's a player you want. He gives you position at point guard and shooting guard. He's available in 81% leagues. He's been player 65 the last 2 weeks. He gives you 2.3 3-pointers made, 12.3 points, 3.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and 1 steal. So there's some players to add to help improve your fantasy basketball team. Okay, thank you so much for watching to the end. If you haven't yet, please take a moment, hit that like, comment, subscribe. And if you do not know yet, on Saturdays we are dropping our start sits for the week. So check that out to make sure that you're watching, seeing the players you should be starting and sitting for fantasy football. And at 11 a.m. Central Time, we go live to kind of give you the best updates of what's going on for fantasy football. So check that out. We have our store. Go there, get some DGL merch, and have a great week.